Okay, so today is September 13th, 2021. We're calling to order the Dayton Human Rights Committee. We will do a roll call. So when I say your name, please say here. Kristen Pyers. Here. Kristen Amos. Here. Vivian Musa.
Here.
Ali Sunart. Here. Norm Corsi is not here, and Jill Burke is here. We also have Ken Pacheco, Board of Selectmen.
Yeah. We got Raymond Hagan, Veterans Agent, President also.
And we also have Allison Wisher.
Here.
So we can stand and say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have to do, state whether or not you agree with the minutes that Ali had sent out, and if you had received them, and if you agree to approve them. So say yes or no. Kristen?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Opinion?
Yes.
Ali?
Yes.
And Jill, I do, yes. So the minutes for August meetings are approved.
You need a motion and a
Oh,
second.
sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the August meeting.
I second it.
And then we have to go through a roll call again, right?
Yes.
All right. Kristen?
Yes.
Kirsten?
Yes.
Vivian?
Yes.
Ally?
Yes.
And Jill, yes. All right, so minutes are approved at 6:35. Do we want to,
Well, I was thinking, should we make a motion to move item?
Six.
Yes, so
Item number 6.
item number 6, make a motion to move item number 6 to the next topic ahead of 5.
so you're gonna make a motion?
Yes, making a motion to move item number 6
Does anybody second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. We will go through, Ally? Yes?
Yes.
Vivian?
Yes.
Kirsten?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
And Jill, I did say yes. So that motion is passed at 6:36. Okay. So, town manager review, so.
Yes, so first paper on the agenda of the discussion on suicide awareness is our veterans agent, Ray Haig. He's been a veterans agent since the end of June. He has a history of being a veterans agent. He used to be the veteran agent in Florida for a few years, maybe, was it 10 years? Almost 11 years, and he was, obviously, Florida is a lot bigger town than where we are. He was in the US Navy from 68 to 74, and he left as a petty officer. So we have about 425 veterans in town. He deals with them all the time. He gets calls all the time, deals with them. I asked him to speak on suicide because you may be aware that there's a high number of suicides in people who served in active combat. Last figure I saw was, hope I'm gonna get me hope, talk about 22 a day, which is horrendous. But you understand that some of these people had 2, 3, 4 tours, and I can't imagine what they, not having served in the service. I can't imagine what they're going through. So I thank you for your service, number one, Ray, and you've got the floor.
Okay, sitting okay?
Yeah.
Sitting is fine.
Seems fine, yeah.
Thank the committee for moving me up on the agenda, that's always a pleasure.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
So, I am a Dayton resident, so, I came here to Dayton about 5 years ago, and, just love the town and love Fall River, and here I am, so it's been a good couple of months. So, September is National Suicide Awareness Month, and the veterans population, although we only have 1% of the population in this country serving, it represents 25% of the suicides. So that's a staggering figure, and there's been a lot of work done on it. And just lately, because of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, there has been 35,000 calls to the Veterans Crisis Line between August 13th and August 29th. Just that alone, and that's not people returning, that's people that have served probably over the last 20 years or so, questioning themselves, you know, what did I do, what's going on, and it's a very, very traumatic time for them. Kind of like back in 75 when we withdrew from Saigon, all of us that were in at that particular time felt that because it was a long war also, it was a 10-year or even longer, and a lot of problems. So I know the figure the selectmen gave you, I think was based on their 100,000 or so population, because the actual figure is 127 per day. So, and that is up about 40% from 2005. So it's very, very traumatic. And I mean, I can give you all the statistics. There's been so many studies and all. I'm going to leave the committee with the National Veteran Suicide Prevention Annual Report. I'm not going to read all these. If I was an elected official, I'd read all this. But I'm an appointed official, so I won't. So you can read that and look into it.
I'll start at page 1.
Yeah. That's it. So I'd just like to speak on how it becomes personal, what happens to a veteran when they come home. When they're serving in a combat situation, they're with the platoon, they're with the battalion, they're with the group that does the same thing every day. They all understand each other, they have a purpose, that becomes their family. And they support each other like families do. But when they come back, these last couple of wars is not like World War II, where everybody served. The mailman served, the milkman served, the selectmen served, everybody served, so they all understood what they went through. Now, you might find somebody here in town in Dayton, nobody else served. And there's no family for him to draw the support from, because the family doesn't understand what that person's been through. So the best thing that anybody can do is just reach out to a veteran, ask them their story, ask them what they're doing. Can you help? Of course, thank them, because they like that. But they were interested in maybe telling the story. There's so many times where somebody said, well, I know somebody that was in, they never talked about it. Well, nobody asked. It's the old Tip O'Neill story, why did you vote for me? Nobody asked. That's the way it goes. So those are the things. I mean, you may see somebody that's depressed clinically, things such as that. We're not in the clinical business, but you can tell when somebody needs a little bit of help. So that's basically what I suggest. The support systems that are in place in our area are tremendous, because we have Brockton, we have Providence, we have VA centers in New Bedford, Portsmouth, Rhode Island. So they're there. But the veteran has to ask for the help. Nobody can force them or make them do that. So basically, that's all I can say. If you see somebody you think needs a little bit of help, you know, let them know. You can always call us here at the Veterans Office. We're always willing to help. And I have a lot of information here, but rather than just keep on talking, I'd like to answer any questions that you might have. That seems to work pretty good. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Well, that was gonna be my question. So, you know, within the town here, we come across people, the best, what would be, you know, outside of, you know, thanking them for their service and what can I do to help? What would be the best course of action to direct them towards? Calling the Veterans Agency here, like within the town, and then you helping direct them?
Yeah, let them know that the town has a full service veterans office, and that we can get them anywhere they want. We can get them benefits, we can help them get the VA loan program. We do everything here, we're full service.
Right in town.
Right in town, we're full service, we do everything everyone else does. We can connect them anywhere. And from what I can see, I've only been here for a little over 2 months. It looks like there's been a pretty good program in place for a long time, and veterans seem to take advantage of it. So that would be the thing to do.
Do they have any support groups locally, like within the town here, of the veterans in town, or I'm sure maybe outside of here, there is support groups or?
Well, close by, the two closest veterans organizations that I found, there's one in Berkeley.
Oh,
It's
okay.
American Legion,
Yeah.
and there's one in Rehoboth, up off of 118.
Yeah.
I believe there was one here in Dayton, but I think that the population got smaller and they belong to the other one. You have the Marine Corps League in Van Guysen, which is in Somerset, so some of the veterans belong there. But Bristol County has a seat, and it's in Fall River. There's the Bristol County Veterans Association, and that services veterans from all Bristol County. They do all the claims, they do food pantries there, they have a lot of support services, jobs, they have a job network to find jobs, and that's a pretty good resource. I've mentioned it to a few of our veterans here that didn't know about it, and they don't go to Fall River all that often, I don't know why, but no, they did say that they would take advantage of that resource.
Right.
And it's kind of a different demographic, so some people here in Dayton ask, is there a place we can donate and things such as that, they want to be involved that way, so it's good.
Gotcha. What is the direct line, the phone number for the agency here?
Yeah. The direct line here would be 774-872-0944. And I have my cell on here, which is 508-207-6021, and anybody can call me anytime.
Oh, that's excellent. Oh, thank you.
Is there, transportation to, get veterans to like outpatient providers for therapy, et cetera?
We do have transportation here. We have a van, and we will bring veterans to their appointments at Brockton in Providence, Rhode Island.
And then I have another question, are there supports for family members, either of, while they're, deployed, or if they're about, like, if, they come home from deployment, they're struggling with depression, is there any supports for the family members, or if they, die by suicide, like, what?
There are, I have several numbers in the office. One of them is Veterans Inc., and that is a program. They're all federally funded through grant programs, and they're available all through the state. We also have a lot of volunteer services available for people that become shut-ins or they need day-to-day services. And we also have a program for low income, which is called the Massachusetts Chapter 115, which would give them a small stipend, a small monetary benefit, but also a lot of their co-pays are picked up. Now that's shared with the state on a 75% the state pays, 25% the town will pay. And it's a real good program, so.
And that's income-based?
It's income-based, yes, it's income sensitive, correct.
If we wanted to provide, if we wanted to do any type of community service for the veterans, like, is there a how would we go about?
Well, I would say you contact me down at the office, we'd find out what you want to do, then we would approach the select board, the town administrator, and say, this is what we're looking at, and if it's a good, it would be a go, I imagine.
What activities do you think would be appreciated by your team?
Well, Veteran Service Days are always nice. I mean, we do the traditional Memorial Day, and we do the Veterans Day things such as that. But we could provide a Veterans Resource Day and bring in some people that have benefits. The federal benefits, they call them stand downs, or they'll call them just what they are. It's almost like a job fair, but it's for benefits. And the town veterans can come in. It's a little camaraderie, they talk, and a lot of things have been put on hold because of COVID. So it's hard to get those people to come out right now, but I see it starting to loosen up. That this is a great place for something like that right here. And you let the people in town know, and especially, I don't know if there's anybody coming home. I don't know if there's anybody that's been serving over the last 6 months or so.
How would we find that out?
Well, usually you find out through the press or something like that, but we can try to make some phone calls. See, they'll be out of the National Guard, which I think there's one in Taunton, right? There's one in Taunton, so usually you find out through, people hanging around talking kind of thing. You find out.
So if,
Or a proud mother or father walking down to the Alice's saying, my son just got home. Oh my daughter, women represent a pretty good percentage of combat veterans right now. Unfortunately, we just lost one from Massachusetts in that bombing in the airport, so it's unfortunate.
so if the Human Rights Committee decided to sponsor an event, we would just contact you and kind of talk it through.
I think that
about
would
what
be
you
the
think.
start point, you know, see if we could pick a date, what was actually feasible to do. I looked at my budget, so I don't have a lot of line items there in my budget, so it was gonna be, it was, I know who holds the purse strings. So, you know, that's where you have to go with that.
Well, something that, well, your budget was already set up before you,
Yes.
When you got appointed, the budget was already there. Something you can approach.
We could add that, yeah.
Right, the board of selectmen and the finance committee, I'm sure there's a lot of support. I agree that, I'm not sure if I'm interrupting someone who was asking a question, but I agree that, from a veteran, when I worked in the courthouse, we had people come in and speak to us, and one of them was someone who suffered through post-traumatic stress disorder. He went through his whole process. But he said that Massachusetts has the best benefits for veterans than any state in the country. Do you know if that's true? Or?
That's absolutely true. Massachusetts is the only state that has Chapter 115, and it started right after the Civil War. And it was put together originally to take care of dependents, widows, and things such as that. And we're the only ones that have it. When we go out to these different, when we used to go out to these different events, seminars, or whatever you call them, we used to say, we're better than everybody else because we have Chapter 115, the Red Sox, Patriots, and Bruins. So I don't know if I forgot a spot, but that's pretty much what we said. But you're right, yeah, we're the only state that has it, and it's an excellent program. Funded, fully funded every year, and I know I deal with a lot of the towns and cities, and their local budgets have been very, very generous towards veterans, so.
Now, I was mentioning that we have 425 veterans in town. Don't forget there's families,
Oh, absolutely.
members, there's daughters of veterans and stuff like that. So it impacts not just 425 people, but it
Right.
impacts more than 425 people. My brother who served in Vietnam got a bronze star. He's never spoken to us about how we get the bronze star. Some people we don't know, we know very little of his experience in Vietnam. I can't imagine what he went through, quite frankly. But he did mention, there was one incident, they were setting up you're in Vietnam, so who knows how it's set up, it wasn't like Dayton, but they set up this kind of a social club that they were gonna have, and they were gonna have an opening night, and for some reason, they could not go that opening night, and it got bombed. So, I mean, it was planned, I'm sure it was planned that all the soldiers would be there. Imagine living, I can't imagine, but imagine living, that you could die at any time, you could lose, miss your family, so I can't imagine what these people going through. I understand sometimes why people don't wanna talk about it. You got a bronze star, we're very proud of it.
My other question, just thinking specific to the suicide, is it tend to be a specific age? Do you see where the suicide, is it more of a younger population? Is it the older population? Is there kind of an age range where?
Those demographics
It's
are
in that
in that
report.
report that I
Okay.
gave you. The only statistic I remember is about 70% of the suicides are by firing a gun or an explosive type thing. That's the only one I remember from there, but all that's in that book. If you're interested in that, it'll tell you right across on income, education, every demographic is there.
I think the hardest part, and like a lot of the reason why we like to talk about these, just to try to get the word out there, to people. So even if it's just one person that sees it, you know, that says, you know, I didn't realize that we had these services available in town, and they know to pick up the phone, and, you know, to me, I think that's the biggest thing is just getting the word out there that you guys are there to support.
It's a good safety net. When the veterans know that their community care, that's a start.
Yeah.
Because they'll want to be part of that, and that'll nudge them into the right direction. So if they feel isolated, they're not gonna.
And especially right now with everything, with Afghanistan, with COVID, with, I mean, it's just that everything just, you know,
That's a tough time.
building on top of something else.
Just about everyone that has come back in the last 6 months knows somebody there.
Yeah.
So they turn on the TV and they see what's going on, and they know that somebody they either made friends with or whatever, even right down to their service dogs that were left behind, it affects them, so. Because, you know, when they voted to mobilize, they just gotta get up and move, get and go, that's it. So,
It's also the anniversary of 9/11,
yeah.
20 years.
Mhm.
Is this also online, or is it only print?
You can find a lot of information online, that's online.
Okay.
A lot of the other reports are online, that's the most recent one completed in 2020.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Ray, I appreciate it, thank you for your service, thank you for being here.
Yeah, looking forward to working with you, and if you want to put something together, you know. A lot of the things that I had done in the past were assembled and run by non-veteran groups, and sometimes they do very well. So I look forward to that.
Yeah, that's great, thank you, we appreciate it.
All right, nice to
Nice
meet
to
you all.
meet you.
Thank you, Ray.
Stay safe out there.
I will.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ally, would you like to introduce?
So Allison Wisher is a person who I have reached out to because I know that with her clinical background and her just professional attitude and whatnot, I think that she would be a great candidate to talk to the town about suicide awareness. I appreciate hearing everything about the veterans' point of view, but I do think that, you know, it impacts a greater population. So Allison does have a PowerPoint that she's going to work off of, and I will share the PowerPoint, right, Allison?
Yes.
Let's see if I can find it. Okay. All right, Allison, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself, and then, we can get started?
Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Wisher, and I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to be here virtually with you this evening to talk about suicide awareness. I know it's definitely a difficult topic to talk about, to generate a conversation about, so I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hold on. Oh. Okay.
All right, so what is suicide? There's a few different definitions that we have to consider when discussing suicide. Obviously, it's defined as the act or instance of taking one's own life voluntarily and intentionally. Suicide attempts, which are non-fatal, potentially injurious behavior with the intent to die as a result of the behavior. A suicide attempt does not always result in injury. And then also suicidal ideation, which refers to thinking about, considering, or planning suicide. Why is suicide awareness important? Suicide rates have actually increased by 35% in the last 2 decades. It is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. It was responsible for more than 47,500 deaths in 2019, which is about 1 death every 11 minutes. It is the 2nd leading cause of death for people between the ages of 10 to 34, the 4th leading cause among people ages 35 to 44, and the 5th leading cause among people ages 45 to 54. I know some of you may have younger children. I was kind of shocked to discover that each day in our nation, there are an average of 3,700 attempts by young children in grades 9 to 12. I thought that was quite a staggering number. And then there were also 2.5 times as many suicides in the United States as there were homicides in 2019. Another thing I wanted to add is also just understanding the issues concerning suicide and mental health is an important way to take part in suicide prevention, to help others in crisis and sort of change the conversation around suicide. Knowing the risk factors are incredibly important. Risk factors are characteristics that make it more likely that someone will consider, attempt, or die by suicide. They can't cause or predict a suicide attempt, but they're definitely important to be aware of. Mental health disorders is definitely a significant factor. Approximately 46% of individuals who committed suicide were diagnosed with a mental health condition. In addition to that, we have alcohol or substance use, history or trauma, major physical illnesses, job or financial loss, prior suicide attempts, loss of relationships or bereavement, easy access to lethal means such as firearms, lack of health care, especially in mental health and substance abuse treatment, the lack of social support and sense of isolation, and homelessness. So these are all risk factors to sort of consider when looking at the bigger picture of suicide. So in addition to the risk factors that are typically observed in the general population, it's important to recognize how suicide impacts our military service members and veterans. Very much like the gentleman who spoke before me, he sort of touched on some of these things. With the recent 9/11 anniversary and the heartbreaking images coming out of Afghanistan during the recent military withdrawal, it's so important to consider how these events can affect our military service members and veterans. The suicide rate among veterans is 1.5 times greater than the non-veteran population, ages 18 and plus, with over 6,000 veterans dying by suicide each year. A study found that an estimated 30,177 active duty service members and war veterans of the post 9/11 wars have died by suicide. And that number is significantly more than the 7,057 killed in the global war on terror military operations. In Massachusetts in 2019, we've unfortunately lost 65 veterans to suicide. Now, while that number was not significantly different from the national veteran suicide rate, it was significantly higher than the national general population suicide rate. So it really is a population that we have to, take care of, look out for, and provide those community resources. In addition to the risk factors that I, mentioned earlier, to consider with the veteran population, some of these things the prior gentleman had already spoken about, post-traumatic stress disorder. Traumatic events such as military combat, assault, or disasters can have long-term lasting negative effects. Veterans are 15 times more likely to experience post-traumatic stress disorder. They're also prone to traumatic brain injuries. In addition, they may experience insomnia and sleep disturbances, opioid use and drug overdoses due to combat-related wounds. And then also, as the other gentleman mentioned, was the transition to civilian life, as they can face challenges in a variety of areas, including employment, finances, mental health, access to healthcare, and social support. So again, having those availability of resources in the community for veterans when they come back from war is incredibly important. So in addition to being aware of the risk factors associated with suicide, it's very important to talk about the warning signs. So warning signs are clues that a suicidal crisis may be imminent. We may see things of, talking about wanting to die or kill themselves, looking for a way to kill themselves, like searching online, talking about feeling hopeless or having no reason to live, talking about being a burden. We may see withdrawal from friends, family, and society. They may cease engaging in activities that used to be important to them. They may display uncharacteristic or impaired judgment or behavior, such as risk-taking. They may also be seen to finalize affairs and give away valued possessions. So how can we help? The most important thing that we can do is ask how they're doing and to listen without judgment. It's important to not try to argue or disprove any negative statements that they may make, such as your life isn't that bad. That's probably the last thing that we want to say to somebody who's considering suicide. We want to be able to express support and concern and enlist help from persons or agencies specializing in crisis intervention and suicide prevention. So I also included some information about resources. There is the Suicide Lifeline. There's also the Military Veterans Crisis online chat text messaging service that's free to all service members, including members of the National Guard and Reserve and veterans, even if you're not registered with the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs or enrolled in VA healthcare, you can have access to the support. It's also important to consider grieving the death of a loved one who may have served. So there's a tragedy assistance program for survivors. And I also, of course, included the Department of Veteran Services available right here at the Dayton Town Hall. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Allison.
you.
I think one of the big things that you mentioned really was like knowing the risk factors and how important it is that a lot of these pieces here affect so many people, depending on what, socioeconomic status they are, depending on, their community or anything like that, anything on the risk factors, can lead to suicide, and it's something that, really hits home to a lot of people.
I think it's also important to remember, suicide isn't for one specific population. Like Allison said, it goes against all ages, as young as 10 and even younger. There was a boy, I think, that died in Fall River, I think he was 9, that died by suicide, all the way up until, natural death ceases. So it's across all ages, it's across all races, it's across all genders and gender identities and socioeconomic status. How many celebrities recently have died by suicide? So I just think that, you don't know what somebody's struggling with in their personal life, and just to be aware that somebody like Robin Williams, who is so energetic and filled with life, right? That's what we thought. Could die by suicide. So, just don't just assume that people are okay. Always just make sure that you're watching for those little signs, because it could just be something so small that you're just not, like something just feels off, and just be aware and to be able to ask about it. Asking about suicide doesn't lead people to die by suicide. It's the exact opposite. You want to talk about it, you want to ask them, do you want to even just go out for a cup of coffee? Like, I think just being open and talking about things. In addition to some of the numbers that Allison had referred to, there are text lines that you can have, and I'll give this list to Allie so she can add it. But there are crisis text hotlines so for kids, especially teenagers who don't want to talk on the phone, they can just text the crisis hotline, and they'll text you back and just kind of talk it through with you.
Is that like a 24-hour, 24/7?
Yeah,
So
and
there's
it's
always
not
some-
insurance based, so it's free. The Samaritans, everybody knows about them. In our area, we use CCBC, which is Community Counseling of Bristol County, for MCI services. MCI is Mobile Crisis Intervention, and they can go out to a home and evaluate somebody to determine whether or not they need a higher level of care, like going into a hospitalization, and then if they don't require that, they can either hook them up with other services, or they can also do a 7-day follow along. So they'll check in with you for 7 days to just kind of make sure that you're doing okay. And that's again through CCBC. SAMHSA has the Trevor Project, also does texting, chats, and stuff like that. It's for teenagers that are LGBTQ+. There's teen lines that you can do through iPhone, so you can just hook it up. There are so many apps out there that you can use too for parents and for kids to just do check-ins, safety planning and stuff, just to be aware. If you Google any of this stuff, it'll come up. You just want to be aware, especially if if you know somebody that is struggling. And to give them, the more information they have, the more supported they feel. And it can be overwhelming at times, so you don't wanna like dump it all on them, you wanna just, again, be aware of that.
I think as a parent, you know, for me personally, you know, always wondering, you know, I fear that she's not gonna tell me something, or she's not going to, you know, let me know what she's feeling or thinking, and, you know, that's a scary thing. And, you know, would I always know the signs, especially in a child? I don't know, you know, you like to think, I think the school, the junior high, don't they, or at some point during the year, I think they offer they have a speaker that comes and talks to like how to look at the child's room and what things you might see in there, and I'm not sure when that is, but it's just, to think that is, like you said, Allison, the second leading cause of death for, I think, 10 to whatever age that was, that's just.
And I think, you know, part of our committee, one of our, you know, goals is just to kind of start that conversation and talk about difficult topics, and suicide is a difficult topic, and I think Jill really, you know, mentioned it in real, I think you need to really highlight is just talking about suicide doesn't mean that, you know, you're going to cause it or it's going to happen. You need to have these difficult conversations with not just your children, but your friends, your colleagues, you know, your grandparents. Yeah, anything, yeah, just really making sure that we can have the conversation, open it up, and, you know, if anyone is looking for resources, as Jill said, you know, we'll provide them, but just Googling it alone, you know, just ways to start the conversation is really going to make a big difference.
And then lethality as well. You know, they can easily Google search something that you wouldn't even know that they had done it. Most kids and everybody nowadays has access to iPhones or whatever, you know, so they can access what's the easiest way to kill myself. And a lot of times they turn to medication. It can be lethal, but if it's not lethal, it can really do a number on your internal organs. And, you know, it could have been like a fluke thing that you're like, all right, I'm just having a really bad day, and you take, you know, a bottle of Tylenol. Tylenol will eat your, you know, your kidneys, like, and now you're growing up and you're having all these like gastrointestinal problems that stem from something.
One episode, yeah. Yeah, and I think Allison talked about it a lot too, of, you know, there's suicide, the attempts, and then, of course, just the idea of it all, so. It's not.
One of the aspects that perhaps might be worth discussing is to which extent we can prevent, you know, suicide attempts or suicide themselves, and probably there's a connection with mental health, and there are some mental conditions which are invisible and lead naturally to suicide. So one of them that I was actually recently, that came to my awareness, was something that people often actually mention casually, which is OCD. And I've been also guilty myself of mentioning that, but OCD is actually a serious mental condition, and there is one subcomponent of OCD which is called pure O, or pure obsession. So it's the condition with just a thought, but the individual does not embody an action. So, for example, they're not consistently washing their hands or doing repetitive rituals, but they have just thoughts that just come in there, just keep playing, or bad memories which just keep playing. And so, part of the reason why that's actually a real problem is because it leads to suicide, and most people are not aware of it because pure O is often not diagnosed.
It's actually not a diagnosis.
It's not a diagnosis. So you see that, but it's a real thing, and I've known people who have committed suicide from from that. So
obsessing over,
obsessing over one,
Yeah.
or a series of thoughts.
and again, that's one of the risk factors is the mental health.
Yeah.
And like you said, that's not, you could walk into a room and no one would know that they have OCD, no one would know what thoughts are going through their mind at the time. So it's a lot. Allison, thank you so much.
Do you have anything that you want, I know that we've been talking, but you can more than feel free to jump into our conversation or. We talk a lot, sorry. This is also my field too, so it's my heart.
No, I just wanted to thank everyone again for the opportunity to share some of this information with you. I think it's great to kind of start the conversation and get that dialogue going because it is a tough topic to discuss, and I appreciate the opportunity very much.
Thank you,
Thank you
Allison.
so much.
Thank you.
I think part of one of the major issues too is that there's not a lot of resources. You know, there are counselors all over. Most of the time that they have a very long wait list where your insurance doesn't take them, they don't take insurance. If you are feeling suicidal, you go to the hospital, you're evaluated, there's no beds for you to go to. So you're sitting in an ER, boarding there, how exciting is that? So you're gonna be like, yeah, I'm good, I feel fine, go home. You're not actually feeling any better. Hospitalizations are usually 3 to 7 days, depending on when your insurance is done paying for it. And again, it's the system. And it's also a hard job, as a clinician, I work with adolescents, and if we don't always feel valued either, they like, oh, you're just, you're talking nonsense stuff, so I feel like it's just a never-ending cycle, so more people aren't getting into the field because there is no, glory in the field, it's depressing conversations all day long.
Yeah, a lot of burnout.
It's a lot of burnout, so I think just always just kind of being aware of what people may be going through because they can't get the help, and that's why we use these hotlines in the interim, and just getting on wait lists, calling everybody, and getting on as many wait lists. And
I think too, being able to talk to other people who may be experiencing or feeling the way you're feeling is very helpful. To know that you are not alone and that you are not, an unusual person because you may feel this way. I think that is, very helpful. Those group chats and the text messages and being able to have something relatable to somebody else, I think is really, because you will feel, alone and isolated.
the elderly population is at a huge risk, not only because, maybe physically they're breaking down, but also the loss of their partners, the loss of their friends, and now they're suddenly all alone. And it made me just feel easier to join them rather than to stay and suffer. So again, just kind of always being mindful that it's across all genders and it's, sorry, genders, I said that, I mean, races, ages, but there are a lot, especially right now, there are so many like virtual options for groups, that, again, just Google it, there's stuff out there. You just wanna be aware, help.
And maybe it's also another opportunity to remind people to just be kind overall.
Yes, thank you.
It's like the cheapest thing you can do, right? It's the cheapest thing you can do as a human being is to not be a jerk.
Yes.
It's very, very easy not to do. Because you never know what someone is going through. And it could be just the last thing that's just, the last drop in a very, very bitter cup. And you don't want to be, the reason why someone has, you do not want to contribute to the destruction of another life.
So the chain reactions.
The chain reaction, just so be kind.
That was true. Favorite things that has been said to me all day. Good reminder.
It's free.
It's free, yeah, look at
It's
it for somebody,
Right.
they don't wanna walk through somebody, they're not invisible, people are not invisible. Everybody deserves some sort of kindness. Does anybody have anything else they want to add? So we can,
Do I have to make a motion to go back to 5?
No, we'll just go back.
Okay.
because we didn't vote on anything. So we're gonna go back to, number 5, which is reviewing our budget. Kristen, do you wanna talk?
So I know that we had kind of thrown around the idea about doing a movie, possibly in the park, and the movie, you know, being geared towards children and picking something that it has some type of inclusive diversity, you know, storyline behind it. So I've kind of been back and forth with Kevin, just looking at dates. I know that we have to go through the Board of Selectmen to officially reserve that space behind Town Hall. So I don't know how everybody feels about it, if this is something we wanna, you know, move forward with. You know, being that we talked about possibly doing it in October, because it gets darker earlier, so we could start earlier. I wasn't able to find anyone that actually had one of those inflatable screens, so I did price them out, and for a 16-foot screen, which viewing, I think, shows from like 75 to 100 people. I think that would be more than sufficient. Is $349 plus tax. And they actually have somebody come out, they set up the screen, they run the equipment, they do the projector, they do the sound, they do everything.
This is to rent, just for a night?
Yes,
How much was it, I'm sorry?
$349. So that's what I'm saying, I don't know how people feel, you know, about
It's
that.
like a one-time thing.
Yeah.
And we have a $2,000 budget, right? We have not touched that at all yet.
So,
We use it, right?
Mm-hmm.
and it's,
So that would leave us with 1651.
right, so, and I don't know, like, yeah, that's why, so I just wanted to put that out there. Kevin said, I think that we can hang on to the Porta-John that's out here, maybe through that time. I don't know what time it actually, at what month it leaves the park, because you have to have that there, correct?
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the freeze.
Yeah. I don't know, does that freeze? Who knows? And then if we chose to do popcorn, we would have to have somebody serve safe, which somebody from Board of Health said that they would stay with me, who is serve safe.
My wife is so
Oh, she is too, okay. So we would have that taken care of. I have access to the popcorn machine, so it wouldn't cost anything. So the only thing about that, and I did speak with Kevin, and he was willing to kind of collaborate together to get, you would have to have some type of hand sanitizing washing station if you chose to do food. Question, if we were to have a truck come, like say if you had an ice cream truck come, would you still have to have the hand washing station thing, or no?
That's probably a good question for your father, but I don't
It's only if you're serving.
I believe it.
If we were
Yeah,
serving.
I'm not positive.
So if we had like a giant bottle of hand sanitizer, would that suffice the hand washing?
I don't know, he had told me you had to have some, whatever we had at the Firecracker Festival, so I think it was like a bathroom set up with a hand, I think if it had actual hand water washing, honestly, I'm not 100%
Yeah,
sure.
we, for the Strawberry Festival, for the Starbucks Society, we had a Porta-John, but we also had to have that also.
The hand wash.
The washing, the water, and all that.
It was water, I think you actually have to have, so I mean, we could say poo-poo the popcorn and, you know what I mean, not do that.
Or just have everybody bring their own snack?
Yeah, I mean, I would like the idea of being able to provide that.
What if we had, like individually packaged stuff that we weren't touching? That somebody were to donate, like individual bags of chips? Would we still need a serve safe, and would we still need the?
Yes, that, we could
You're talking about like a regular, not a bag that we fill the chips in.
Right,
just
like
a-
it was prepackaged.
Yeah, I don't think you have to,
I can clarify that.
So if we went to DJ's and got like, if we know that there's,
You can have those,
we say like, or we're gonna just get like 150 bags of chips or whatever we don't use, we'll use, go to the food bank.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly ask, I mean, I'd be fine with that too.
I'm just thinking, I'm wondering if it would be cheaper to do it that way rather than renting a hand washing station.
Right.
I know someone who has a food truck.
Well, that's what I was thinking, if we, you know, I mean, do they have to pull a permit?
You know, that you have to go to the Board of Health,
Right,
they inspect the truck, all that kind of stuff, but I don't know about it.
I mean, how big is this going to be, how much effort is
Well, this is-
Varsity going to? I mean, not effort, but like, how much, like, are we gonna try to make this an annual thing? Is it just gonna be one of those things that like, hey, we're just gonna spend, you know, $500 on and then kind of this is up to nothing? Is it?
well, that's why I'm throwing it out there, I mean, these are, you know, if this is something we wanna move forward with or not. October is considered like, National Bully Awareness Month, so it would be good timing for that. You know, but what would the turnout be? I don't, you know what I mean, I don't know.
Rain date?
What
movie would, this is such a major question, but what movie you think?
Well, no, and that's, you know, I was kind of looking to see if people had ideas. I Googled, so the most popular, and I guess we're wanting to think about what age group we would want to target too. Are we talking like, you know, younger? Most of the movies, if I look up kids movies that, you know, for support diversity or inclusion or what have you, they tend to be like 6, 7, 8 and up are the movies. Like some of the repeated ones were like Coco. That was one, came up on a lot of the lists. Aquila and the Bee, that came up, that was a little bit older. Big Hero 6 was another one. I mean, there's a laundry list.
So there's no bullying.
No, like some of them, you know, that's just more, actually How to Train Your Dragon was a really popular one too, oddly enough, because of the dragon had an injury, ended up with an injury, and
What's that movie where they had like the feelings or something like that?
Oh,
Inside Out.
Inside Out, you know, any of those
Luca
movies.
is also really good. I don't know if anybody has seen Luca.
I don't know, I didn't see it.
I mean, and we don't have to do this, that's why I want what people feel like.
I feel like if we're gonna do this, I feel like we should connect with the principals over at the schools.
Yeah,
Or-
Kevin did
or-
suggest reach out to the PTO, which Crystal is, I
Right.
believe, on the PTO. I feel like we're getting to like time sensitive now, and that's the other thing, like.
I feel like we need to be blasted because, you know, they're despite all the efforts, the yoga just wasn't a huge turnout.
Right.
So I feel like we need to like blast it to the school that are going through, superintendent, the principal, or PTO or something.
So are any, like what season is this? The Girl Scouts on cookies this season and the Boys?
They don't
Boy
do.
Scouts doing anything like that? Like I'm trying to think of like another group that we can say, you know, the Lions Club will also be there selling hot dogs and the Girl Scout cookie season is here and troop, blah, 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 I don't know.
Girl Scout cookies don't come out until December.
Yeah, I think popcorn, it's popcorn
Popcorn,
for the Boy
like,
Scouts.
for Boy Scouts.
So, I
We need
mean,
to order that ahead of time, it's not like, it's also $28.
so, I'm kind of,
Well, do we think that this is a good use of the money though? that we have?
right,
It's-
exactly,
It's a one-shot deal, I'm
Right.
not sure, I mean, we're in the middle of September now.
Right.
We're talking maybe 4 or 5 weeks on the road.
Right.
We need time to advertise and that kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm just wondering if we're gonna have a big enough group of people to spend that.
right, I feel like
I think
it's too much.
I think it's a great idea, don't get me wrong. And maybe it's something we should think about for next year.
Right.
I was just gonna say, could we revisit maybe in like April? So
Right,
that
and we
it's
can
closer
plan
to
it
the end of
for-
our fiscal year, so
Yeah.
we know how much we have left, and then we can make it bigger.
Right, well, that's it, because I feel like it kind of, it's like we're here now, and it's gonna be too brush, and I don't wanna spend this, you know, money, to do that. So, but that's why I just wanted, I knew we were gonna talk about it, something we had been throwing around, so, and that's fine, I totally agree, I think it would be, I'd rather make a bigger deal about it and collaborate with some other groups, you know what I mean, and have a, like you were saying, you know, have kind of different.
Or maybe even like, if the Fire Market Festival is happening again next year, you know, like just do it later on that weekend.
End the night with that, yeah,
So like there's
Good
probably
idea.
starts at 2, whatever, our movie maybe starts at 7 or something
Yeah.
like that, because
Yeah.
people just kind of spend the day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree totally, that's why I just wanted to, you know, definitely put that out there. So,
I
I think,
love the idea, I love everything about it, I'm just wondering if we do it closer to the end of our fiscal year, because then we can, you know, we
What we're
won't
gonna
know
do.
how much,
Down.
and we can really like
Yeah.
get big.
yeah, no, I'm good with that. I like the idea of even trying to see if we can get the lions there, circle
Yeah.
dogs and stuff, so. You're a lion, right?
I'm lying, yeah.
I
I thought I was lying too.
say, I don't know.
I've been lying for a couple of months, so.
Even something like Zootopia.
Zootopia was on the list, that was one, definitely.
Maybe we could even do like a series, like May we do kids, blah, 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 or like, you know, June, then we do this. Yeah. But I would, you know, I mean, kids are the future, you know, but, you know, teenagers too, you can do something around prom season, kind of talking about, you know, rape awareness and what,
Mean Girls.
yeah, Mean Girls, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, there's a lot we could do.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree 100%, so.
Alright, so do I need to make a motion that we're going to not host a movie night, or we never really?
We never really, it was just discussion.
Discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Public input and discussion. Right now, there's no one.
I'm shocked.
Does anybody have, anything that they feel like is pressing? That they wanna talk about?
Not at the moment.
I wanna say like, thank you to your friend who did not the friend, the volunteer who helped with the yoga day. The yoga morning, we did have someone from the community come. It was a great opportunity, I think. I was impressed at how young the kiddo was, and he came out and he knew all the yoga moves. So it was a really good opportunity. You could tell that, the other kids that were participating in the yoga, like, they maybe didn't know each other, but it was good because they were just starting school. It was a good way to kind of decompress, get ready, kind of focus some of your energy and just kind of being ready for the new school year. So I wouldn't mind doing that more often, if we could,
Actually, the parent of that child loved it, and they said, oh, is this something that we could do more often?
Yeah, and I participated in
I can only,
it.
this is what it is.
That was it.
Yeah, it was a really good event.
It was a beautiful day,
Thank you for
beautiful morning, it was
Yeah, it really
gorgeous,
was.
Stephanie did a great job.
putting on. And a beautiful area that I didn't even know existed.
Yes, yep.
So, yeah, it was great, thank you. It would have been nice to see more faces, but I think,
Sorry.
we're looking at you.
Shots fired.
I will not. I will be.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
No, it was a really beautiful event. Thank you guys for setting that up. I know it was a lot of hard work. And we got some food for the food bank. So that was always nice too.
What is the month of October? What are we going to?
Bullying.
I mean, that just, and
I
throughout
think it's
everything,
Good
it's a,
choice.
yeah.
What are our thoughts do we want to continue going through and doing presentations like this?
Right.
Do we feel like it's better to just have open conversations? Do we feel like it's better to have somebody come in from the community and just kind of do a quick talk? How do we feel like we want to move forward?
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of thinking about that too, and, I think, like, what are we, doing for the town, per se, you know what I mean? So like, if we become involved with Ray and the veterans and what we can do, you know what I mean, and moving forward in that direction. Because not every month needs to be, a specific thing. If we're working on one specific project, we can come together to, discuss that too. So, it's hard, we're still just kind of finding our way, even though it's been almost a year now, but I still
Next
think.
month is a year.
Yeah.
Oh, is that November?
I could easily be wrong.
I think it was November, yeah.
I don't know, 100%.
So, I know that's not really a great answer, but
Yeah,
I know what you're
I
saying.
don't know, I feel like you know, we've kind of gone up and down on a roller coaster, you know, there are some agenda items that, you know, were really hot and we were talking about it, and now I feel like we're at a really pivotal point where we can just kind of take this group either to the new level or kind of keep plugging along, so.
I don't want to be stagnant.
Right.
That's me here, to become stagnant, in the town, because I feel like, you know, I know that there's nobody out there right now, but people could be watching it after.
Right.
And those are the people that want, we want you guys to join.
Right.
Come here, you can be here with us. And so I just don't know, like, how do we want to continue to run these meetings? Does anybody have, like, does anybody like the presentations? Does anybody prefer, you know, more just like like an open discussion around topics? I know that that's what we did for like the autism one, which we had a lot of good conversation. I feel like we had a lot of good conversation. So I feel like it's, like Ali said, we're kind of like trying to figure this out. And people have to remember, we're still new, all of us to this. We're not political people. We're not, this is our first time joining any sort of,
Yeah, I wonder, you know, a few things that thinking about. So the first will be that there's something powerful about speaking and maybe having a compelling story being told. But I'm a bit hesitant about that because I wouldn't want to put any child in a spot like that. But it would probably be very powerful to maybe have someone who has been bullied perhaps share their story. But I don't know how you make that happen without having the child relive a traumatic experience. So that's okay. There's some discussions there to be for us to have. The other thing that may be helpful is that I'm sure the administrators, the local schools, have a certain level of expertise in that area, dealing with teenagers and preteens and all. You know, I have children in the school system, and they've been bullied for being mixed kids. That's something that people can talk about, for example. And we can maybe, one of the things that I have actually brought to some of the individuals who are higher in the administration was that I was concerned, for example, that there was a significant level of lack of diversity, for example, in the school system, among the teachers. And so we could have a conversation maybe with those who are interested in the educational aspect to see to which extent can we as a community help prevent acts of bullying within the school systems.
So would we reach out to the school and like talk to like maybe their adjustment counselor, or is there like, do you feel like there's like a better
I don't have, I think I'm sort of just throwing some ideas out there, and probably, you know, these ideas aren't completely well thought of, but it's perhaps a starting point to maybe anyone who's working at the school should be able to provide us with some information.
I think providing maybe resources in October would be a great idea, but I think we should think maybe like 2 or 3 months in advance. So for example, what is December? What do we want to focus on in January so that we can really put a lot of, time and invest a lot of energy into really, kicking off the new year or the next month with something huge. Because I don't want everything to be piecemeal, like, oh, hey, good, pull up this PowerPoint, you do this, okay, we're good. Which I think we're getting much more organized because we've really come a long way. And like I said before, we can focus kind of what we're going to do, but we need to be strategic. So I think it might be okay to have a month of kind of just a wash, where we don't really talk about anything much except for really planning the future.
Well, that's what I was trying to say too,
Yeah.
like brainstorming, like using this meeting to plan for, December's, meeting or whatever, like you were saying.
I have our goals up on the screen. And I think so far, our number one goal is to actively increase community awareness of possible human rights violations through education and community programming. That's our goal, that's our number one goal, and I feel like we've achieved that so far. Every month, since before April, we've really been focusing on a topic and educating the community about it. So I feel like we're off to a really good start, and I don't want that to stop, because that's something that we want to work on and have part of our goals. So whether we keep going with, some guest speakers, that would be great, or we could do more, community awareness through another avenue, but I feel like we're off to a good start here. Report human rights violations to the appropriate agencies. As far as I know, nothing has been reported to us, so I think, that's good. I also think by having these type of presentations, we are also almost creating a book of resources. So if someone wants to come to us and say, if they were, Pacific American and they were, felt violated or something like that, oh, well, a couple months ago, we just talked about this, let's dig up those resources and know where to go. So we're really doing a good job of, collecting that. It may be also, every time we've had a presentation or anything like that, I've tried to add the resources or the sources, anything like that. So maybe we can even just create a book of resources. And even if we said, we don't even have to send out, we can just post it online of just, okay, here's another list of things, and just try to make sure that they stay updated.
And we do have a link on the town.
I was just gonna ask.
It's not great.
Right.
It's not updated. I don't think any of our missions are on.
We
there.
cannot change that ourselves, correct?
No.
Who manages that?
I would just.
Would be Leanne.
Leanne.
So I can contact her.
Because I think it would be great to take some of these resources that we're having here and having them where somebody could access them.
Right, all the time. So even though autism awareness was back in April, your kiddo could just be diagnosed, today.
And that's part of why we wanted a Facebook page as well, so that, people couldn't post directly on the page, but could message us and then have all of those resources, have the links for the, the meetings up online and stuff like that, but I just feel like if they were able to post directly on the page, I feel like that could, get a little messy. So I'd rather keep it contained and people could just, either email the human rights email or be able to message on through Facebook or Instagram or whatever we're on.
Yeah, we'll start with at least updating the town website, because I went on it today actually, and I think it still had some of our old members listed, so I don't know if that's because they didn't,
Everybody is.
officially design it. Okay, all right, so maybe we can get that updated. I think that would, be a good start. All right, I don't know, I feel like I'm on a roll here with these goals.
Yeah, that was great, I like it.
Work collaboratively with town representatives and the community promoting acceptance and eliminating intolerance. So some groups we've already worked with so far, the Parks Committee, so that was with the Firecracker Festival. We've also worked with them a little bit just to make sure that everything was all set for the yoga. We had police officers come in, give a presentation, everyone on autism, but I think that's it.
The seatbelts,
Yeah, seatbelts. Last month, we talked a lot about the older adult population, so we had
Disability.
and disabilities, right? So we had someone from the ADA committee
And I did, even though they weren't here to speak, I did speak with and work with the Council on Aging also, so.
Okay. So far, so good, so we got,
And then today, veterans.
yep, today veterans, exactly. All right, number 4, organize community events that foster inclusivity and celebrate diversity. We're getting there. Although we did not organize the firecracker festival, we participated in it, so that's, we'll say 4.5.
And we did yoga, and then,
That's right.
and then even just talking, trying to plan out our movie.
All right, number 5. Respect and empower all members of our community while ensuring inclusivity regardless of but not limited to all of the major classes. So I think empowering, and this could be a little subjective, but I do feel like everything that we are educating the community on is an empowering situation, so.
I think that's what happens every time we get together.
Okay. All right, 5 out of 5. And then facilitate an environment in which all members have the opportunity to contribute and thrive with confidence for the principle of equality without fear of discrimination or retribution. So all members of the committee and all members of the community, right? So we'll see. That also happens.
No, that was good, that was a good little recap. So for October, do we just not want to have a specific topic, and do we just want to use October to, I mean, nobody says we have to do bullying in October, we could work towards that. I mean, I think that's such an
Yeah, of
important
course.
topic in general, you know what I mean, so.
And it's connected to, things like suicide. So it's a central topic.
Right, I don't wanna skip it altogether, I want to do it, whether we do it in October or.
Right, yes, yeah.
Whenever.
Yeah, let's do it. But what do you want to do? Invite another speaker? Or do you want someone on our committee to talk about it?
Or do we want to wait, like use October's meeting to
Have the
determine
conversation,
what we're
yeah.
going to do, and we could do it in November or December or whenever we decide that to be. So it's not so rush.
Right.
Because that's kind of getting involved with the school and, who's gonna be willing to talk, not talk, and,
Our meetings are scheduled for 6:30 to 8:30. So even if we have a 20-minute discussion on bullying, just on a formal thing, kind of throw out some resources maybe in the high school, something that targets high school kids. And then maybe we can spend the rest of the meeting planning December, November.
I feel like when we, so I was the Girl Scout leader for, Girl Scout troop in Dayton for a couple of years, and I feel like there was, what the other troop leader had spoken about, a young female that was bullied, not in Dayton, in a neighboring town. And she did a lot of empowerment speaking to other kids about her experiences. I can look to see if that is an option, because then it gets like what you were talking about, like having a kid.
hearing people's personal experiences,
Yeah.
it's really.
And I believe she runs like her own yoga class now, and she's still young, but she was able to like take her experiences and, really learn from them with the support that she had. So I feel like that might be an option. I can try to that, I'm not promising anything.
Or even if just 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, just in the beginning, get it out of the way, because, I don't know, I felt really confident when we just reviewed the goals and we've already kind of hit the majority of them, so far in the past.
I don't wanna rush through it either, because it is.
Right, it's such an
so
important
vital, for our community, and bullying doesn't just happen to kids,
Right.
like,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
bullying
Right.
happens
Yeah.
to everybody. I feel like probably every person in this room has been bullied at some point, right? Whether it was today or 20 years ago. And I feel like we've all had our own significant taste of what bullying can look like and how it can make you feel. So I don't wanna rush through it. But I agree, maybe just, having, if I can find this person, or if we can find somebody else to kind of come in and talk about their experiences and then do an open discussion about it. I feel like that might be a good, and then we can use the rest of the meeting. I feel like our meetings, it's only 7:48, I feel like we've been pretty good about keeping
Good time.
pace. So I think we would have a good chunk of time to be able to still plan if that's if everybody's okay with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Do we, need to,
We don't need to vote on it.
because it's pretty much the same thing. All right.
All right, so I will try, and if I can't, I can reach out to the school too.
Well, I was just gonna say, do we want to try to get the school involved in this upcoming meeting, or the adjustment counselor, or whomever? That could just speak to the topic, generalized.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think it's worth a shot asking, because, it's also short notice for them, so they could easily say no. Or you'd say, give us what you got, even if it's a couple websites or a couple books or something like that.
For
They
example,
know more. Yeah.
spaghetti on the, so many good ones.
So we'll try it. I have no connection to Stuttgart whatsoever, so
I can do that.
or I would be a good person to kind of, reach out there, because they don't know, no one knows me or have a bias towards me, but if you already have connections, I'd say go for it.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'll do the elementary and the middle school. I don't have any connections with the high school. I don't know if anybody does, but I can still reach out and see. I can do like a mass email, with all of them on it, like, hey, when are you going to do this?
Yeah, or does anyone have any ideas on what we can talk about, something like that? And I also think it's important that we encourage the public to also email our hrc@dayton-ma.gov, if they have any ideas, because we can.
Or if you wanna just speak,
Right,
Parents of kids that have been bullied, that's,
Yeah, there you go,
hard.
yeah.
Parents have to deal with this in a different way.
Yeah.
They wanna be there with their kid, they wanna support them and love them, and going through something that's so awful, it's just awful.
Yeah.
And sometimes the concept of bullying is also not completely clear,
Right.
like it varies. Some people are a little bit more loose on what they call bullying. So for example, if you reach out to your parents and you are concerned, they may not agree that, the behavior of the children or the child is, so what exactly is bullying?
Right.
Where do you draw the line between just playing around and actually hurting people?
Yeah.
So that's not completely clear.
Right, and now there's cyberbullying,
gosh, we could go on for hours.
I know.
It's true, yeah.
There's so
The
much.
social media aspect of
Yeah.
everything is
Yeah.
horrific.
And some parents don't even know.
That's right. Yeah.
Right, and they don't know because they don't know how to approach the situation, they don't know because maybe they don't have time to be involved in their child's life, so they, don't have the energy. Maybe because, they are subconscious about the whole thing and they're getting bullied too.
Or maybe the kids don't tell them
Because
because they're
parents,
parents,
So I think this will be a really good, discussion, exactly. So we'll spend some of the next meeting maybe talking about bullying, of course, because it is important. Then plan out.
So we're back to that question of, do we want to continue that? Because we're like, I don't know.
I think it depends on the topic,
Okay.
too. Like something like this, I personally would appreciate somebody from that's, in that situation or in the schools or whatever, educating myself, personally. I mean, I think some topics may be warranted, some don't, maybe a little bit of both. I don't know, I don't feel like there's like a yes or no answer to that.
But then let's also think, okay, next October, so October 2022. So this October, we're going to talk about resources for parents to kind of open up the conversation and whatnot, like, how are we going to make next October even better, better than having just these little conversations here? What are some of our action steps going to be?
That could be leading an event for kids,
So I think, maybe perhaps moving forward, we can talk about a little discussion, an educational piece, and then talk about what we're going to do I don't know, I think maybe a year is too far, you know what I mean, because everyone knows,
Like action steps?
yeah, April's always Autism Awareness Month, okay, so like, what are we, everyone knows that, and I think that it's important to acknowledge every single April, so what are we going to do to make it bigger and better next April? June, LGBT community, gay pride month, we did some stuff this year, we had a really great educational presentation on that, what are we going to do next year?
No, I'm absolutely, I agree.
Because otherwise this is gonna be a
Repetitive,
long
this thing.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think having action steps for future is a
Yeah.
good idea.
All right, so next meeting, we have always been doing the first Tuesday of every month. I think we chose not to do the first Tuesday of this month because it was the day after a holiday and school was just starting, whatever the case is. Are we going to continue with that? Now that we have a new group of, you know, Kirsten's new, Norm is new, a lot of the other members who we had initially, you know, aren't with us anymore, so do we keep it, do we need to?
Well, I think it depends on availability of the town hall is one factor, right?
So I think this, like, what is this, the second Monday of the month that are open, because that's kind of like, we've been falling off the road, I think, when we do have like a.
Which is Columbus Day, this October 11th, right? It's Columbus Day, so.
But should we stick to the first Tuesday, because that's kind of.
Oh, yeah, wait, today's Monday, that's right.
Yeah.
So meeting schedules are getting a little tighter because we also used to have meeting in the basement, town hall, and now the kids' library is there.
Right.
So they can't use that anymore, so
I mean, I'm fine with, do we still have it slotted for the first Tuesday of the month?
I believe.
We are in that.
I can check
Yeah,
it out
that's
tomorrow, I believe.
But
That's
that's-
why I'm just asking that we be consistent then, so that we book
Right.
10,
Yeah.
Right,
3,
yeah.
4, 5, 6 months.
Yeah.
So that we don't have to worry about something.
Does that-
At some point, we're gonna send some meetings to find.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty flexible, I think, yeah.
First Tuesday.
First Tuesday?
First
Oh,
Tuesday.
hold on, but that. Yes. I think I actually have a night class
On Tuesdays?
yeah, I'm gonna.
So when I reach out to Leanne, would you like me to see what other slots are open? So-
Option, yeah.
So then I'll reach out to her and that's when we can schedule our next meeting. I can, I'll email everybody, is everybody getting the emails from the Dayton? Okay, so I can email everybody and then you can just send it to me, just reply only to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty flexible with my time, with my times
Okay,
at this point.
okay, so I'll ask you for
But if
opening.
you, yeah, if you has class, I think.
Yeah, and we want you here, you're such a vital part of our
Oh, thank you.
community, so.
You've been kind of that. Stop bullying me.
That awareness.
No, for real though, you are very.
Yeah, absolutely, I think it's important we're all here.
So I'll ask for a meeting and then I'll send it out everybody out, just respond on to me so that we're not voting on anything outside of.
I think that's a good idea, and the Dayton Town Hall, our little page on that, it does say meeting frequency or something, and it is blank right now, so if we have something consistent first Tuesday of every month, just throw that out. We'll see what goes.
I think the problem with Mondays is holidays. Most holidays are on Mondays.
Yeah.
So we
We're
just.
not meeting every week, so,
Yeah.
but you're right, because the
Because then you have to
holidays.
bump it to another day.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll see what we have and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Just, that's the best that we can do right now.
All right, perfect. But we're not voting on anything, right?
No.
We're just gonna wait, okay. Because I think we'll have to also talk to Norm as well.
Yes.
And continue meeting on site, right? Kind of this hybrid mono. All right.
I think it would be great if people from like, anybody wanted to join us.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we should have juicier topics.
I don't think we should forget about the logo. I know we talked about that a little bit.
Yes.
You know, I know that the community also let us know that there's already a logo, you know, out there for human rights in general, so we can kind of talk about that a little bit. We'll figure it out. We can go from there.
Is that something that we want to talk about at the next meeting, is the logo, whether or not we adopt the,
universal.
What are we doing, or like, also, what's the, I know we just brought it up, but like, what's the point of a logo? To put on our Facebook page, or, you know, whatever.
But just so
put in
if
the
people
calendar.
see it, they know that that's us and put it on our pamphlets and stuff like that. It's not gonna be flying anywhere. It's just for our representation of our town. That was the whole point of it, I think. So.
And I, also, so maybe I just contradict myself, but the human rights logo, okay, so I feel like if we do put it out there, you know, then people, I don't know, so like if someone is flying the gay pride flag, for example, you know, the rainbow flag, and they know, okay, this person's an ally. You know, if someone is, you know, posting, I don't know, like a cross outside their house, okay, this person, you know, I have something in common with this person. So maybe if we do kind of promote the human rights logo in general, and kind of use that whole universal, the one that's already there, you know, I guess it started in 2010, then again, okay, this person or this group or this town is an ally to human rights. You know, I feel like this is a safe place to go to, whether they want to talk about human rights or whatever topic, at least they kind of know. So maybe we do put that on the agenda for next.
Yeah, I just added that, so I keep random notes, people see me writing, but it's all like really just making, I forgot things.
All right, 7:59.
So we have to have a motion to, does anybody have anything else that they want to bring up, they want to talk about before we call for a motion to adjourn? No. Person, okay?
Yeah.
Anything important? Okay.
I put you on the spot.
I know, I don't think you're pretty late, so.
We can talk a lot. So where are we at with this whole Facebook page? Are we allowed to have one, not have one? Do we know?
I still have not heard all
this.
I think Mike is still working on it.
Oh, okay, so he is, okay.
Yeah, I have not heard anything.
All right, just curious.
We're just trying to be very careful. about that
Absolutely, I
Because
understand.
the climate and everything else, and we don't want it just to be something that people are gonna use to vent, so.
Right, and that's why I want it definitely like.
People won't be able to post to it.
Right.
It's more of a communication tool,
Right.
I think, is what it's.
Yeah, so just the administrator would be able to post. People wouldn't be able to share things, they could share things through Messenger and then the administrator could post on it.
But what's the difference between that and us giving, I don't know, I think tonight I saw on one of the Facebook pages, like Kevin shared something like, oh, meeting at the town park today to talk, at 5 o'clock to talk about blah, blah, blah. And it seemed like he sent that to a page and they broadcasted it. Is that something we could do too? Like,
So, I know Kristen has met with some issues around.
So, yeah, it depends what the topic is, it depends, you know, we get into this whole topic of this, we're perceived as being political. I have had posts taken down on local town pages.
okay.
So,
Well, I don't know, I'd rather stay out of that, so. The one thing I do like about social media is that everyone's on it, but that's also one of the reasons why I don't like it, so. I think we're okay, you know, like we're.
and I guess, you know, like, I think even if we don't share our page on another town page, if people within the town and friends, if, you know, then you just start getting that, you know, cycle of it. You know, I did quote, I was able to share the yoga, it's, you know, it's kind of a.
And I think too, if we do something more with that logo, then maybe we can do something more with, you know, lawn signs or something like that. And then, you know, that can, I don't know, talk a little bit more, but we have plenty of time. And it's 8:01 and I make a motion to.
I second.
Okay, so I have to call out, Kirsten?
Yes.
Vivian?
Yes.
Ally?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
And I say yes. So, meeting is adjourned at 8:02 p.m. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Stop the recording.